A war broke out in 2013, killing an estimated 400,000 people before a peace deal was signed. And many right now are worried about a return to conflict. Our next guest, Niel Deng Niel, has been one of the most prominent figures in the SPLM for over 4 decades, holding a variety of senior positions, including the country's foreign minister. Many have tipped him as a future president. So it came as a real shock when he broke with the SPLM earlier this month, launching a withering critique of the South Sudanese political elite. When we spoke in our London studio, I asked him what he thought was going wrong in South Sudan.
I would say that South Sudan is being run down. The problems are huge. Basically, total failure of governance. Nothing is working. There is very serious political instability that has actually manifested itself in violence all across the country. There is intracommunal violence, intercommunal violence, and of course political violence. The economy is in shambles. The South Sudanese currency basically is now worthless. And life is extremely hard for most South Sudanese these days. We believe that this situation is being perpetrated by the refusal of the regime, President Salva Kiir personally, to allow the transition to run its course. After the conclusion of the peace agreement in 2018, the provisions of those peace agreements have not been implemented. They are being implemented selectively, and the implementation, of course, even is being violated. The agreement itself is being violated. The government is dragging its feet on the implementation.
Do you think President Salva Kiir would lose elections, even given the historical weight of his party, the SPLM, which took South Sudan to its independence, even given its control of the mechanics of government? You think he would lose elections?
Yeah, I think the SPLM is potentially a very weighty political outfit, but it has been basically destroyed, has been completely dismantled by President Salva himself. First and foremost, he basically tossed aside the vision of the SPLM. So, although the government of the Republic of South Sudan is an SPLM-run government, there are no policies that emanate from the SPLM to inform government programs and actions.
Do you put that firmly on Salva Kiir, President Salva Kiir Mayardit's shoulders? There is a theory out there, the liberation curse, that says that the people who take a country to its liberation, to its freedom, the freedom fighters, often are very bad in government. That the skills required to be a rebel leader are very different to those required to run a modern country. And that sort of critique would fall not just on Salva Kiir, but on others, including perhaps you, who've been at the heart of South Sudanese political life for decades.
Yeah, you can say that the failure of the SPLM is a collective responsibility, in the sense that people like myself, who have been part of the leadership for quite long, haven't spoken out, basically haven't taken action, But it is not necessarily true that liberators are not good in running governments. As a matter of fact, the SPLM, when you compare it to other liberation movements, is quite unique in the sense that it actually started preparing itself for governance responsibilities. Meanwhile, it was still in the bush. As a matter of fact, most of our SPLA commanders, especially when we were about to sign the comprehensive peace agreement, were sent abroad to undertake courses that are relevant to governments and to provide them with the skills, because in government you need different skill set than when you are in the bush.
So you see the party as essentially a shell of itself or of its ideals. Why? I mean, is this just, to your mind, a way in which Salva Kiir maintains his grip on power, or are there other factors at play?
Yeah, he's doing that to maintain his grip in power because he doesn't trust his colleagues on the SPLM to be supporting him any longer. In fact, the SPLM, it's like a locomotive, where you have got carriages. The carriages are fine, but the locomotive itself is damaged.
South Sudan's short post-independence history, but even if you go back before its independence, is full of examples of dissidents taking up arms and then afterwards coming back into government. You formed a new movement. Will it be a peaceful one, or are you prepared to use violence to obtain your ends, your desires?
We would hope that we won't have to resort to armed struggle. But if President Salva Kiir and his government continue to resist the transition, so that the transition comes to a halt, then there will be no alternative, not only for me, but for other South Sudanese, other than to resort to armed resistance. It will become inevitable.
But do you see anybody, whether it's Salva Kiir, whether it's Riek Machar, whether it's any one of several other powerful men with guns, with armies, willing to accept defeat in an election?
It's likely that the election results will be contested. But again, it all depends on how the elections themselves are conducted. I mean, right now, there's no political space. If you deny civic and political space, and then the government, let us say under the SPLM, IG becomes the only political party that campaigns, that goes out soliciting votes and so on, and others are denied that opportunity. Obviously, once the elections are held, if at all they are held, under those circumstances, then most people would, the defeated party would not accept the outcome. So that's why I'm saying it's very, very important that even prior to the elections, we must give sufficient time to make the adequate preparations to ensure that once the elections are done with and the results are declared, everybody will feel that those results basically reflect the will of the electorate.
That would mean, in your mind, elections in 2026, 2027, or is it simply too difficult to give a date given the steps you feel need to be made?
If we confine the elements of the RRCs that need to be implemented to the writing of the Constitution and to the holding of the elections, there's no reason why elections should not be done in 2026. And the sooner the elections are held, the better.
You know President Salva Kiir very well. You've known him for decades, fought alongside him, governed alongside him, now in opposition to him. How do you assess what he's thinking right now about the country, about his legacy?
I don't think he's thinking very much about the country or about his legacy, because if you look at the decisions that are being made and the frequent changes, the dismissals and appointments, they don't sound rational. So I very much doubt whether thinking about welfare of the country, his own personal legacy, is one of those things that is uppermost in his mind. Not at all.
There was so much optimism, so much joy in July 2011 when South Sudan declared its independence all over the country, all over the world, where there are diaspora South Sudanese communities, lots of goodwill, I think, around the world as well, which you saw as foreign minister. Do you feel that South Sudan's leaders, including yourself, have let the country down since then?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the manner in which the international community received the birth of the Republic of South Sudan was just amazing. Even we South Sudanese ourselves could not believe what we saw. I mean, the birth of a new country. Everybody, the world over, wanted to be associated with the birth of a new country and that success story. So, to that extent, what has transpired very clearly indicates that we have actually let the country down.
South Sudanese veteran politician Nial Deng Nial, speaking to me a little earlier. We've had a reaction in from Martin Manyarugun in Juba, South Sudan, saying the problem of South Sudan as a country is the political leaders' particularly impatient nature. Honourable Nial Deng and other SPLM leaders should stop their blame game and offer leadership that improves the lives of the South Sudanese people.
Now, Wole Soyinka is a globally renowned